tuning in to the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads from over 200 countries and your #1 source in after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans, producing after-shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hey everyone, welcome to Spotlight On. I'm your host, Derrial Christon, and here joining me today is a very sought-out actress. She is getting a lot of buzz in Hollywood right now. Cory Oliver is with us today.
Thank you. You are too kind. I love that intro. I appreciate that.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations for all your success. I mean, I know you've had a lot of feedback and positive feedback for God's Not Dead, also Beverly Hills Pond, and you're generating just a lot of buzz in Hollywood, which has got to be exciting for you.
You know, we were just talking before the show, you and I, about obviously Joan Rivers and the sad news today. And I was telling you that it's very difficult to break into this business, let alone sustain 4 decades like she did.
Absolutely.
And so I'm grateful to be where I'm at right now. I've been through the fire and have a history in Hollywood as well of pounding the pavement. And so, yes, indeed, it has been a journey, and I'm so grateful for just being where I'm at.
And you grew up in Northern California.
I did. I'm a small town girl.
Small town girl.
Yeah.
Now, at a young age, did you know that you wanted to get into the entertainment business early on?
I don't know if I necessarily did at a very young age. I was bullied a lot and teased as a kid. And so it took me a long time to be able to look at someone in the face, because they would call me names like fish eyes and bongo lips and flat face, and you know how kids can be.
Yeah.
And so I was about, I guess, 11 or 12, and I started doing plays.
Oh, wow. And
I kind of found my voice on stage. And so it just became this whole other world, of having a voice and not being able to speak to your bullier, but you can, obviously have a voice on stage. So I really took to it in a production of Fiddler on the Roof.
Fiddler on the Roof. I know that well.
You have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, that's right. Big time.
Exactly. I think it was a tree and a tumbler or something like that. So, everybody has that little story of how they get into it, and then I just loved it. And for me, it's about the scene and just nailing it and escaping, really, and creating a character.
And then at what point in your life did you realize that you wanted to move to LA to pursue it even more?
Well, that's a good question. I was taking care of my grandfather, and he was very sick, and after he passed away, I just told my family I was about 22. And I said, I'm going to Los Angeles. Wow. I didn't know anyone. I had $400 in my pocket. I had a room to rent down south here. And, when you're that young and you don't have any responsibilities, you just kind of fly by the seat of your pants, which I did. Yeah. And it worked out.
Now, we hear a lot of these stories of people coming right off the boat wanting to be actresses and actors here. And, there's always so many managers and people who say that they can help you in your career. What was your transition like coming here? Did you have a manager? Did you have an agent? Did you kind of get here and you found that it was pretty quick that you were able to get someone to represent you?
No, not at all. I actually moved down to Manhattan Beach. I didn't know the lay of the land, so I didn't know where to move to, be in the mix of everything. Yeah. And I had met Mark Wahlberg, and not the Mark Wahlberg, he's a producer.
Okay.
And he made a phone call to me to a Jerry Zeitman at the agency, and I called for 2 weeks to try to get in a meeting, and they wouldn't take my call. And I finally just showed up, and I said, I have a meeting to meet with Jerry Zeitman. And his assistant came out and said, I know you've called for 2 weeks, Cory. He'll see you for 5 minutes. Well, long story short, 5 minutes I turned into him saying, we'll try and see if we can submit you. And the very next day, I booked Silk Stockings.
Wow.
So
persistence paid off.
Persistence paid off. And, I always tell my daughter, I have a 15-year-old daughter, I always tell her, never give up.
15-year-old daughter. I'm sorry, that took me back right there. I was like, I thought you were going to say maybe like 4, 3.
No.
Wow, that's, you look amazing, obviously. So I'm
Thank you.
Wow.
God is good.
God is good. We need some of those genes somewhere around here.
Honestly, it's just not abusing yourself.
Yeah.
Everything's moderation. And, don't, a lot of people, kind of fall into partying. And,
Sure.
And it's not that you can't party and have a good time, but your body, I think, is a temple, and it's what we put into it is how we kind of present ourselves. So
That's very true.
yeah.
Well, it shows.
Thank you, Derrial.
And then with you working, you start, as you mentioned, Silk Stalkings. And I know there was Weird Science, the TV series.
Yeah.
What was it like for you being a new actress in this town, kind of working on those shows, which were pretty big and popular during that time period?
It was exactly. Those were kind of the things that we all broke into and did the guest stars and co-stars. It was fun. I had a good time. My very first audition, I didn't know what to expect, and I went on a Disneyland audition. And so when I was in there with 5 other people, and they have you slate, and when you slate, you say your name and your age and all that, they asked me, "What's your favorite ride at Disneyland?" And I was so nervous. I had like cotton balls in my mouth. I was like, and I was thinking the Matterhorn, because that is my favorite ride. And I said Magic Mountain.
Magic Mountain.
Which, as you know, is a whole other
It's
theme
a whole
park.
other thing, yeah.
And they were like, okay, if this girl's dumb enough to say that, we're going to give it to her. So I booked it.
Well, see, it worked.
Again, prayer works.
Prayer works.
Yeah. So, you just never know how any audition's going to go or how anything's going to, just go, do your best. If you mess up and stink up the room, as one of my friends said, Greg Grunberg, who was on Heroes.
Yeah.
You do. You've been in this business. You know what it's like. Some days you have good days. Some days you have off days.
You just got to go with the punches.
You do.
sometimes.
You do. And kind of that was one of the things, going back to Joan Rivers, that I love about her is she wasn't afraid to just make fun of herself.
True.
And you have to.
She was the master of that, actually.
I know.
Yeah.
And others, but
Yeah, true.
it was almost like a rite of passage if she talked about you.
Yeah. Yeah, you could take it as a total compliment.
You
Absolutely.
could, yeah.
And then you worked on also 90210 at the time, which was the original 90210, which is
did.
the hottest show in the 90s and early 2000s.
It really was.
It ran for a long time.
It did, and that's actually a good story too. I tried out for that show for 5 years. Diane Young was the casting director at the time, and I had tried out, and I was always too tall for the guys. They were a little bit shorter than I was, and I finally got a phone call from her one day, and she said, "Cory, we know you can act. Just come on in. You've got the role." And I was like, "What role is it?"
Yeah.
And it was opposite Jason Lewis.
Okay.
He was the guy in Sex and the City.
Sex and the City,
He was a
yeah.
Hugo Boss model.
Yep.
Not so bad, 6'2".
Yep.
So I had to go and do a kissing scene with him.
I know,
It was
that was
really
really
rough,
tough.
Derrial, but and then he didn't shave that day, and I guess there was a rule Aaron Spelling had where you had to be clean shaven.
Yeah.
So I had to go back the next day and take one for the team and kiss him again. So
Yeah.
it was rough.
It's tough life being an actress on 90210.
I know.
And then a lot of the cast has gone on to be very successful. Obviously, Tori Spelling, Jason Priestley, Ian Ziering. On that set, there was a lot of talk about tension. Did you experience any of that tension on the set, or was that kind of like, had it passed because several of the cast members had left maybe by that time period? Or
No, I was kissing Jason Lewis. There was no tension.
there was no tension?
There was at the time. In the halls, you could feel it. There
could
was
feel it.
a couple things going on, and but I know Aaron Spelling ran a tight ship,
Yeah.
and he was very professional, very hands-on. His presence was known there, even though he may have not have been in the studio. He was still very much in the studio, if you know what I'm saying. And so yeah, that was during the time of a little bit of tension.
A little bit of
going
tension.
on. I didn't experience it on the set. On my side, it was good. It was
Yeah.
nice.
And then Tori Spelling now has her True Tori reality TV series. And we have obviously this explosion of a lot of actors who have been movie actors, television actors who are now turning to reality TV and kind of displaying their personal situations and business on TV. What do you feel about that aspect of the business and as far as like even Tori putting her marriage kind of ups and downs on television?
Yeah, that's a good question. I always said when we sort of segued into reality, I said, I'm never going to do reality like most actors and actresses do. And then when I got the call to do Beverly Hills Pawn, I was doing Hollywood memorabilia, which I love. I'm just fascinated with Hollywood memorabilia.
Yeah.
And so it's reality / scripted somewhat, but it's reality. I mean, it's it's about a pawn shop in Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
And so a part of my life is out there, who I am and what I believe in and what I do outside of my, job. But as far as Tori is concerned, I admire her.
Yeah.
I think it's so difficult to be married in this business, even in today's world.
That's very true.
And if you're my whole ministry is saving marriages. I couldn't save mine, unfortunately, but I believe in others, and I believe in the institution of marriage. And so until you've exhausted every single avenue, die trying.
Yeah.
And so for her to exhibit and show true forgiveness in international environment, I honestly admire that. And I hope and pray that they can work it out, because it's a big deal, marriage, and God sees it as a covenant. And I am on the other side saying there's nothing like the original cast.
Yeah, that's
When
true.
you have kids, there's nothing like the original cast, and
Yeah.
it's difficult. So.
But by putting it on television, do you think that it, it's obviously a lot of pressure where you're going to open it up to people having a lot of opinions about your personal life?
Yes.
And do you think that it is smart, if you are having troubles, to really let the world in that sense?
That's a good question. I think in general, no. I would have to say no, because I value marriage. But in her case, you have to understand, she's been in the public eye and in a fishbowl, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Since she was born. And they were going after her anyway. And so she is smart to, and she said, I read once that she said she wanted to help if she just helped one person save their marriage by going through this, then it was worth it.
That's true.
And she's, a lot of times we don't see the inside of the courtroom or the inside of the therapist's office. And so getting the inside, I actually sat there and thought of, gosh, I didn't have the same thing happen in my marriage, but there were certain aspects of it that were similar, that you go, wow, I understand that feeling, and I see that emotion. Oh, they're having it too. And so people can identify with it.
Yeah.
And when you can identify with somebody else, especially somebody in the entertainment or out there with a public voice, it makes it a little easier to forgive the one you're with and to understand. And so I'm really, it's difficult.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's
overall.
difficult for her because she's getting criticized here and etc. But I am for fighting for marriage. I really am. I think, when you stand before God and you take that vow, it is such a strong covenant that it's worth fighting for.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the other side of reality TV, which is like the housewives and the battles on TV of women. As an actress, do you feel that those depictions on television have hurt you as an actress, just going on auditions, and how women are perceived in Hollywood nowadays?
Yes, they have good questions, Derrial.
Thank you.
Clap for you. Yes, I think so, because a lot of people wouldn't know that, myself, that I'm been celibate for years, and they might judge me just based on the way I look or the way what I'm doing, but that I love God and obviously fight for marriage, and they wouldn't know that just by the first look. So I think you have like a preconceived idea of who you are, and then when people get to know you, they get a little bit more insight. That's why I think it's important, like Tori, she's exposing herself in a way that they'll get to know her and see her family. But I'm not, the housewives, they're interesting.
Do you have a guilty pleasure, like one that you watch, secretly that?
Oh my goodness, I'm a Bachelorette fan.
Oh, you're one of those.
I am so I'm like, I'll take the rose. It's so sad. I want to go on that show. I love Scandal, and I love, my daughter and I watch a lot of shows together, but I think I'm waiting for Scandal to come back on.
It's coming soon.
I love that show.
A lot of buzz for that one, too.
I know. I just heard, too, that Castle this might be their last season. I'm a little bummed out about that.
Yeah, that's a great show as well.
Because Nathan Fillion's kind of cute. Just saying.
He may be listening right now. Well, you also did a lot of work on BASEketball, Dead Man on Campus, MTV's Undressed. What was one of your favorite shows to really work on during that time period?
BASEketball, that was fun. That was a fun one. My favorite shows during that time period. MTV's, that was fun. That was Undressed. I was only supposed to do 4 episodes of that, and my character they only did 4 of each, character, and mine got extended to 8, so I had a good time on that. I think I was the only one with gray hair on that show. I was older than everyone else. I would have to say 90210 for me was a good one, just because, like you said, it was the biggest show, and I had tried out for 5 years.
Yeah.
Went for 10, and I finally got on there, and it was fun. That was a good one.
That was definitely a great show.
Yeah, and if you had that on your resume at the time, it just opened up doors.
Yeah.
And
then after Undressed, you took a bit of a hiatus from Hollywood.
I did.
And what was the reasoning behind you taking this period of time to yourself?
I had a child, a baby. And
That would be a good reason.
Yes. And then I got divorced, and so I didn't want to sit on the set for 16 hours a day. I wanted to be with my daughter.
Yeah.
And so fortunately, I was a celebrity hair and makeup artist for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
So I got to kind of make my own schedule and be with my daughter.
Well, that's great because she's got to experience her mom and then got to kind of see you in the business as well. So that's been a great thing.
Yes, and she's the love of my life.
Now, would you let her become an actress as well?
We talk about it. She's been on a couple auditions with me, and she said she's done a couple plays, but she is a water polo player.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Very sports active. That's a serious game right there.
She is just such a better person than me. She's so strong mentally, physically. I mean, I would be crying in the pool if someone tried to drown me. And they do that, as you know.
Yeah.
So she's not interested at this point. You know, her dad's in the business, I'm in the business, so she gets all the little fun things on the side. But I think she's pretty focused on school and just playing sports. And, you know, we'll visit that maybe later on.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
And then when you took that hiatus out and then you came back into the business, were you nervous about it changing? I mean, obviously, like from that time period, I think it was maybe a 10-year period that you were out.
Yes.
A lot of things have changed in the business. So when you came back, was there a fear of like, am I going to be able to adjust back into this world?
You know what, Derrial? They went from black and white headshots to color headshots. I was like, wait, you want color? You know, because for years it was all black and white.
Yeah.
I guess I'm always revert biblically, and I'm not a preacher. I don't want to pound it, but it says, do not fear, do not doubt, do not worry. So some people take that as me being a little cavalier, but I'm really not supposed to if I trust in God. So I was like, you just bring me the next projects, whatever you want me to do, and I'm telling you, you know, and my daughter prayed for a year, and then I booked Book of Esther.
Yeah.
I was literally in my
kitchen.
Thank you. I was crying. I was like, Lord, your word says, delight yourself in the Lord and you'll give us the desires of our heart. I mean, I'm having this like duking it out in my kitchen, crying with God.
Yeah.
And I was like, you say, delight yourself in you. All I've done is delight myself in you, and I haven't, these are my desires, and I'm not feeling them. And I said, if you don't want me to do this, just take that desire from me. And like 2 weeks later, I booked a Book of Esther, which is my favorite character in the Bible. And then Beverly Hills Pond, and then God's Not Dead. So it's, you know, I'm just walking, waiting,
and then,
having faith.
Well, it seems like your spirituality has really helped you just even maintain a sense of value in this business as well, because it's so hard to, you know, sometimes keep that momentum going when there's ups and downs here. So when you booked the movie, what did you enjoy the most about playing your character in the film?
Well, she's a Christian dating an atheist. I was like,
say no more.
Story of my life. No, that's the thing that I don't want people to see me as or Christians as, because just because I was raised a Christian and am a Christian, it took me a long time to realize that it's not about the religion aspect of it, it's more of a relationship. And so through the fire, through the hard times, I've been able to develop just an intimate relationship with God. And not so much, I don't want to be legalistic and I don't want to be judgmental. That's not how we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so I've learned that, and I understand now that we're supposed to be inclusive and love one another, and you know? And so it's been a great journey in this movie. Well, who wouldn't want to be Hercules, you know, love interest and have, you know, Superman as their brother, right? It was like sandwiched between two superheroes.
Right.
But it was just an amazing experience with so many divine appointments on that movie, and it's like God saying, okay, I hear you, you have delighted yourself in me, and I'm just going to bless your journey.
Yeah.
So it was really an amazing opportunity to work with all those people. I mean, Duck Dynasty was in it, and Newsboys, and this is like an amazing little story. My daughter accepted Christ at a Newsboys concert.
Oh, wow.
When she was 9. She's 15 now, and here I am in a movie with the Newsboys.
Yeah, that's
like, if you blink, you'll miss the miracle.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, it's every day, little divine blessings.
And were you a fan of biblical movies prior to doing the Book of Esther?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I love them. I think, you know, I wept for 2 hours after I saw The Passion of the Christ. I just went home and sat on my steps. I didn't even make it up my steps. Yeah. I just wept like.
It was a heavy movie.
It was heavy, and it made me go, I'm so sorry for doing this, and this, you know? But any movie that can convict you to do the right thing or feel the right thing or love one another or can help you, you know, achieve a greater sense of awareness is spiritually in any direction is a good movie, I think.
Yeah. And then currently you're on Beverly Hills Pond.
Yes.
And how did you get a part of, or become a part of that project?
Well, they kind of understood that I was the Hollywood memorabilia girl. And so when I went in to meet with Yossi, I joke about it because he kept thinking he was being set up on a blind date. I was like, no, I'm here for the sales position.
You're like, no, it's business. It's business.
So that's been fun because I've obviously have gotten to see so many amazing pieces come in, and what I don't know about them, I get to research about them, and I love old Hollywood. I love it. I just think there's nothing like it, And so being able to dive in and see some of these cool pieces, like the Marilyn Monroe lighters that came in that she gave out at her civil service with Joe DiMaggio. Wow. They're like one of very few items that have Marilyn Monroe DiMaggio on it, the signature. Wow. Yeah.
Is that like one of your favorite pieces that you've seen? Because when I was watching the show, I mean, there's just so many things, from guitars to just customized jewelry. I mean, it's like a kid in a candy store. I feel like if I went into the shop, I would just not even know where to start.
You don't. It's amazing. Yes, those were one of my favorites because there was a silver and a gold. She gave them out because now they give Jordan almonds or like kisses, but they gave out lighters back then because that was a big era where they smoked.
Yeah.
So she. There were only a few of them because she had a very small service in San Francisco. And these were these two lighters. They had her signature, Marilyn Monroe DiMaggio, on it, which is really cool because there weren't a lot of items signed. They would not sign things purposely together either. So we also had a baseball come in with both their signatures on it as well.
Wow. And then also with the show, I took the What's Your Pawn Style test because I wanted to see like where I fit in the show.
Oh, you're so awesome.
Apparently I am a shrewd business person. So have you ever taken that test? Because I'd like to know where you fall in that line.
I am compassionate.
You're the compassionate one.
Yes. I'm compassionate. I'm otherwise known as a sucker. Right? I cry all the time. It's just one of those things that, I'm the compassionate one, I think. Mm-hmm.
Now, I know also a current episode you dealt with the subject, which you kind of spoke about before, bullying. And what's kind of your stance with where we are now in society with just dealing with that problem overall?
Morgan Freeman talks about that too, how we're not supposed to, judge others in anything, the way they look, the way they are, the color.
Yeah.
And that's how I see it, and that's how I've raised my daughter. I've always told her since she was very young, and she could understand, you're to be inclusive of everyone. You might not be in this clique or that clique, but love them anyway. And so as growing up, I was horribly, bullied. Just lunch money stolen for 2 years by someone and beaten up, thrown into lockers, names, you name it. And it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
It does, because that person that is doing that to you, you could end up being great friends with.
Yeah. And
it's taught me about true forgiveness, and hurt people. So there's always something more going on in that situation, and I think you're a product of your environment as well. Yeah. So, it's difficult because I understand, and I understand some of it, but then some of it I don't.
I can see it in your face.
It's hard. Yeah. It's very hard because my daughter was, choked in the first grade by a little boy.
It's just,
I
just can't even imagine that.
But you know what? It wasn't his fault. Something must have been going on. I went to him on the playground, and I just got down on my knees, and I asked him, and he almost started crying, and he said, yes, I did. And I said, well, we forgive you, but we don't do that here.
Yeah.
And so he was just a little boy, but somewhere he learned that along the way. And so it's if you can teach them, parents don't get involved nowadays, but I'm like, no, I'm going out on the playground.
Yeah.
And so, but it's about teaching them,
yeah.
And understanding. And he never did that again. And they became friends.
Yeah, and I think everyone has a part where they've been bullied at some point. I think everyone can relate to this subject just about now. We hear even adults, dealing with the situations, and they're not teenagers, So I just think that we have to really, take a stance. I know people are trying, but I think people really have to get involved because it starts from a young age to the adulthood.
Look what's going on in the world right now.
Exactly.
It's bullying on a greater level.
Yeah.
It's scary.
It's really scary.
And it just perpetuates, and so we need to stop it at home with our kids and just teach them how to love one another unconditionally.
Yeah.
Like God loves us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm just like so inspired by some of your words here. It's like, and then you moved on to play in a really successful film this year, God's Not Dead, which, just got an overabundance amount of just people who were applauding the film. Did you realize when you first got attached to the film that you would get such an overwhelming response from fans?
No, it's been incredible. They are so gracious and loving and kind. I actually had the privilege of going to London for the London premiere, and they were so receptive and kind, and it was my first time out of the country, believe it or not. And I've never had anyone thank me like this. Thank you for doing this movie and standing up for this, and I'm just grateful to be a part of it, and I didn't see it coming. I mean, it was this little independent movie that, God has risen up and with a great message. And I think it explains a lot from a science perspective and a spiritual perspective.
Definitely.
And, there's been so many people, too. There was one guy who, went to the movies with his wife, and he was going to go see another movie. And he went in with this wife to see this movie, and he ended up kneeling down, by the trash can and committing his life to God. So any movie like that that's going to, And again, like I say, it's not a religious thing. It's a relationship.
Right.
And that's why I just encourage people to just get to know him.
Yeah.
Just like you'd get to know, your mom or dad or friend, get to know God, just talk to him. I always say, can I please hear your voice? And sometimes I'm like, okay, I heard enough.
Yeah. And I know you obviously have a strong faith and spirituality. What did you learn after doing the movie about your relationship with God, even though it's already strong, but is there something that you took away from it, just that you found out about yourself?
Yes, that I will never stop watering that relationship. That when you're married, you have to constantly water that relationship. When you have a kid, you water that relationship. When you have your mom and dad, you water it. You call, you send this, or you meet for, Christmas, and you're watering the relationship. And so it's the same thing. Like, I just need to constantly water that relationship. And I just was so grateful. I mean, there were so many divine appointments, all the way down to the toilet paper. There are, truly. I mean, I was in the bathroom at the hotel, and there was no toilet paper on the roll, and I look over, and there's a roll of Angel Soft. It literally said Angel Soft. Wow. And then I'm in the church, and the same thing happened. There was no teepee, and I turn around, and there's a roll of toilet paper that said Heavenly Choice.
Wow.
And again,
you were getting continuous messages.
It's continuous. Yeah. God is in the details. And so it's so important. And we're not perfect. We're all, I think, I'm a sinner. I'm just going to say it. Think thoughts or, none of us are perfect, but it's just checking in. Yeah. It's much like if you call your mom or your wife or your girlfriend or your daughter, just checking in and saying, okay, I didn't do this right today, Lord. Please forgive me. He's so good.
He's very good.
So good.
What was your favorite part about working on the film, as far as maybe your favorite scene?
There was a scene, was the main scene why I took the movie. It actually got cut down for editing purposes, but I got to tell Kevin Sorbo, I don't want to say off, but Professor Radisson, but I got to tell him how I really felt. And I think I said, if I have to choose between God or you, I'm going to have to choose God, And that's kind of one of the things, for me, being a Christian, it says to be equally yoked.
Yeah.
And that's, means saying different things to different people. But I think one of my favorite things was just being able to do a movie about God.
Yeah.
And to say, thank you, God, in a way that I've not been able to before,
And that's just a great thing to even know that you can appreciate that moment like that,
Mm-hmm.
And then with working on the film, I know one of your favorite quotes is, draw near to God and he will draw near to you. What does that mean for you?
I think going back to the same thing, it's, there was a time in my life, I was raised a Christian, I was raised to God about God and Jesus, but there was a time where it was just I'm going to just admit it, I was a pseudo-Christian, I believed and I said, yes, yes, yes. But again, I didn't talk to God, I didn't draw near to him, and so I didn't hear him.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm always going to be here, but, it's a give and take. And so when I started really doing it daily, question and daily check-in, that's when I realized, okay, and I would say, can I please hear your voice? Can I just hear your voice? And everybody has it. Everybody has it. He does not give it to not anyone. He gives it to everyone. It's that, I call it that check in your spirit, you know, when you're like, okay, I'm going to go left, and you feel, oh, but I should go right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you go left, and you're like, oh,
Should have followed that first
right.
voice. So I always say follow that first voice. It always steers you in the right direction.
That's right. So it's, I don't get out of bed anymore without just putting the full armor on and checking in, and, you know. I'm still going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
I'm still going to be a sinner. And
you're human, and everyone will, you know.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
And then you also, with the cast, work with, as you mentioned, Kevin Sorbo. You had Shane Harper, and Dean Cain was also in the film as well, which was your second time working with him.
Yes.
And what was it like to work with Hercules? I mean, I grew up to Hercules. I'm like, when I saw that Kevin was in this film, I was like, it's going to be amazing.
No, I know. I actually tried out for the role of Xena.
Oh, did you? That's pretty cool.
Yes, I went to network on that. But you know what? It went to the right woman. She's amazing. Lucy Lawless is amazing.
Yeah, Lucy's amazing.
But working with Kevin, I mean, you know, I watched him for years as Hercules, and he's an amazing actor. He shows up and gives you everything. It's much like, acting's much like playing tennis. You always want to play with someone better than you.
Yeah.
You know? It's because then you get better and you learn things. And so I got to learn a lot from him, and he was so gracious. And I got to meet his family. His wife, Sam, was there. He brought his 3 kids, and he actually has a dog named Igwit, In God We Trust.
Oh, that's cool.
Uh-huh. And he just it was really fun. It was a fun set. I met a lot of great people. Shane Harper, you know, he's the WB guy.
Yeah, he's blowing up.
He is. He's so talented, and talk about a fine young man.
Yeah.
Just well-rounded.
Seems very centered.
Very centered,
Yeah.
very respectful and kind, and I got to work with him. He was fun. Hadil Sittu, she was fantastic. Paul Quo, he was in the movie. I still am on a supernatural high from that movie.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
You know? Hopefully they'll make a God's Not Dead too.
Well, I hear that they were planning on making something called Do You Believe, which was kind of like a follow-up. Yes. Would you be involved in that project as well?
I don't know, actually. Billy DeMott, I saw him at a church event, and he said, let's get you in on that project, but I don't know, Billy.
We're putting it out there. We're putting it out there. Call her. She's available.
I would do any movie for PureFlix. They're just a great company, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Russell Wolfe, I know that he was one of the producers, and recently I know he's been battling with his own ALS, which is the neuron disease. And I know that he's encouraging a lot of the actors to take the ice bucket test,
yes,
including Kevin Sorbo.
Yes.
And are you going to participate in that test as well?
I took the challenge.
Oh, you took it?
It's on my Facebook page. I took it, and I did at the end. I said, you know, we love you, Russell, because he talk about another man of character and integrity. He's just an amazing man, and we're just praying for a miracle.
Yeah.
You know, we're praying that he just gets healed, and I believe God can do that because I've seen that. So he's very positive, and you know, he's doing what he can to you know, everyone's praying and pouring in, and so we're just praying that he gets healed. I mean, it was interesting because he had given the news to Tricia LaFosse. In the movie, the journalist,
I saw that.
That she had cancer,
yeah.
And then shortly after he was, you know, diagnosed with this. But he's just such a good guy, you know.
Yeah.
And his wife's wonderful. And he's got wonderful children, and so we're praying.
Yeah, the article I read about him, he just seemed really positive, and as you were kind of mentioning, he said that it was just kind of ironic the fact that he had to make the delivery in the movie of what he did and then this happened to him. He said literally like it was the same type of scenario for him. So he said the film almost prepared him as far as like how to deal with it,
right?
You know, which is a great thing.
And he's just handling it like a champ. You know, he's using it to glorify God.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's one thing that's for sure, Derrial, is that we're all going to go at some point.
It's true.
You don't want to go before your time, obviously, but he's just really fighting it. And you know, it's like new level, new devil. You kind of sow for God, and then you get hit. You know.
Yeah, I like that, new level, new devil.
It's true.
Now, what would you like to play next? What would be your ultimate role that you would really like to kind of indulge in and get all your energy into?
Opposite who?
If you
Gerard Butler?
Well, no, it could be anyone.
Kidding.
Well, maybe I'll make that 2 parts to the question. If you could play any role, what would it be? And then if you could work with any actor or actress, who would it be?
I would love to, I love comedy. I do love comedy. I actually wrote a romantic comedy myself, but I would love to do some comedy. And I mean, there's a lot of actors I'd love to work opposite. I think I'd love to work opposite Gerard Butler.
Yeah. What is it about him that you love so much?
I love 300.
Excellent movie.
I think he's versatile.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just would love to do nothing, nothing like that.
Yeah.
Just think he's really good. I loved him in P.S. I Love You.
Yeah. And it shows his range. I mean, he went from this gladiator kind of, person to this comic, comedic, romance.
And I love that when you have that range.
Yeah.
I'd love to do a meaty role, like a really, serious role. But I think the next thing I'd love to do is some comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would.
I hear that that's like the hardest part of acting, actually. I hear that a lot of people say that, comedy over drama, comedy always is going to be a little bit more difficult because it's all about that timing.
It is. But I love Friends. It's like my favorite show.
Everyone loves Friends.
I have every single CD, and I think I've seen it like 100 times. I think I quote it like on a daily basis.
I think that just set the tone to all comedies in the world, pretty much.
It did. If you watch it from beginning to end, you see how incredible the writers were to just, give them dialogue and let them run with it.
Yeah.
It's really great writing.
And in addition to the projects you're working on now, where will your fans see you next?
We just finished Beverly Hills Pawn. And I'm just kind of waiting for God to bring the next project.
Well, I know He will.
You're so sweet. Thank you.
Where can fans find you on social media if they want to find out what you're working on or just see your ice bucket challenge and any of that fun stuff?
Well, it's the same for Instagram and Twitter. It's Cory Oliver 1, O-N-E. It's Cory Oliver, O-N-E, 1. And Facebook is just Cory Oliver. That's it.
Well, thank you for joining us today. I feel like I got a lot of insight just on a lot of things about you, just spirituality, how you work, and just your energy is just really a blessing to have in this industry. So congratulations, and I look forward to seeing more work from you.
Thank you so much, Derrial. It's been fun and a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to AfterBuzz Spotlight On. I'm your host, Derrial Christon. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and we will see you on the next one.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.